All right, so we have the March Communication Committee meeting. Do we have any additions? Oh, I actually have something to add to the agenda. Colette is here from the Parks and Recreation Department to give us an update on the communication tools that Recreation uses, so you can get the breadth of it and offer any suggestions if there are any. So I'd like to add that as item 5E to the agenda. And are there any other additions to the agenda? All right, and I will assume that that's approved. And were there any changes or corrections to the January 19th meeting minutes, draft minutes that were sent?
The only thing that I saw is that Canopy, the library's film program, is spelled with a K.
Oh,
No.
yep, I see that. Okay, thank you.
I know that's minor, but I don't think you want it misspelled in the minutes.
No, that's why we put the draft minutes on the agenda. All right, next on the agenda is public participation. We've got, looks like Claire and Gail are here. Do either one of you want to talk about anything that is not on the agenda? No?
I'm here. The city website has some new revisions on it. Is that correct, Amy?
It's an updated website, yes.
Okay. One of the things that I'm wondering when it's going to come up is we're already in March and we have new committees and new members, and we still have 2020 members of all committees in the news of government and so on. And I'd like to see that that gets updated. Additionally, when I look at the calendar and there are dates that are underlined for the month of March, it, for whatever reason, I guess it only shows 3 at a time. You can't see the other ones unless you click on it. And I don't know whether the print has to be that large, but it would be nice to see more of whatever these events are that are underlined on the calendar. And if there ever is going to be a way to distinguish between color of underlining them, if they are meetings or if they're library events or whatever they might be, to try to have a distinction.
So events differentiated from meetings.
Right. And then the last thing is, we've talked again about the communication boards in the city, at Val Jones Park and at Lincoln and at City Hall. And I believe when something comes down, something should go up. And I drove in from grocery shopping out of Royal Oak this afternoon, and Val Jones Park is got nothing on it.
Okay.
And I think that we have things to say always. Thank you.
All right, good to know. Thank you. All right. All right, so the first item on our agenda was going to be a follow-up discussion with Brandon Swanson, who's here with My Civic app. And the idea was to ask any questions about the app, how it functioned, and different services that it provided. So I guess I'll ask if people can raise their hand if they've got specific questions for Brandon. I do. One of the things one of the reasons why we're looking at the app or an app is to be able to find additional functionality, if you will, additional ways to provide service in a different way that we can't right now through our website. So I was wondering, are there any functions that come to mind, Brandon, that you are aware of that are easier done on an app than having a resident go to the website and try to perform the same process?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of options, within the My Civic platform. I've obviously done some research on your website earlier today and before our probably during our first call that we had, Amy. As far as functionality goes, I mean, you can still pay bills through the app. You can watch past recorded council meetings if you like, or even live council meetings, as long as the user has access to Wi-Fi. But as far as functionality goes, you also have the capability of sending out push notifications as well to all users, or you can even isolate that push notification by using a Google map and drawing polygons on that map, more than one if you like. And it's pretty much used as a great reminder tool. That's what we've been hearing from our clients, especially if there's construction going on at one part of town, or if there might be flooding in an area, or I live in California. So if there's wildfires that are starting to spread, we let those business owners and those residents know, hey, there's a flood or there's a wildfire that's getting closer to your area. You might want to start evacuating and packing up. Go to this address or go to this location so you can get further assistance. So it really comes down to, as far as what you're looking to accomplish, as far as pushing out some of that information to your residents and to your visitors as well. We found ways to duplicate some of our modules that we offer within the citizen engagement package. I think I showed you, Amy, how we can even turn on what we call a COVID-19 update button. So that way you can provide all your local information regarding COVID, whether that be where can they go to get vaccinated, where can they go to get tested, what tier or what guideline are you guys currently in, or what color. I don't know what the correct terminology is, but we've seen that turned on in more recent months, just so that way, residents aren't searching the internet trying to find that answer, or turning on the world news and it's nothing but negativity most of the time. So they can get that local information with that local COVID-19 update button turned on as well. I mean, I could really go on and on. It like I said, it really depends on what you guys have to offer, and then how we can mimic that into the application as well. We do have some web plugins. I think we walked through the My Civic 311 system, Amy, where citizens can report emergency and non-emergency issues directly through the app. And then we can also turn on what we call web plugins. So they have that option, either submitting something through your website or even through your Facebook page. And all that information is being funneled to what we call your content management system. And we could add your different departments, your public works employees, and so forth. So that way, as those issues are coming through, they're notified via email. And then we also develop for them what we call a staff app for their mobile device and their tablets as well. So as those issues are coming in real time, they're being notified. So it really keeps everybody in the loop as far as what's going on. And then the citizens also have a report built into the app, so they can track and see the different status updates regarding those issues, when they change from new to received, or received to assigned to a staff member, and then finally resolved. We've been told that cuts down on some of those calls that come in, when somebody reports something, whether that be a pothole or tree trimmings or whatever it might be. They can just go to the My Reports section and get those updates directly through the app. So the overall goal obviously is to reduce some of those incoming calls, so that way you ladies can focus on more pressing matters. So that's one of the benefits of developing a mobile app, is to cut down some of those calls, and they can find the answers right there within their app.
Thank you. Krista, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Krista.
Thanks for being here. I'm
Sure.
newer to the committee, and so I missed your previous presentation, but I did watch a portion of it from the recorded session.
Okay.
And so I just had a few questions, and I'm sorry if this was covered last time. I'm curious if you guys have data on, a percentage of citizens that you typically see download an app, in the year after it's launched? Like, what is that typical percentage like? And then in the cases where you see good uptake, are those cities doing, what do you see those cities doing that leads to a better uptake?
Well, you'll always have the statistics as far as how many people have downloaded your app on iOS and Android devices, and then how much monthly traffic are you getting on your app as well. Typically, what we recommend to clients is the citizen engagement package entails pretty much 7 buttons on the home screen. And what we typically recommend is not rolling out all those 7 buttons, all at once. Kind of scatter them out throughout the year or throughout the quarter and make those announcements that, hey, now we're going to turn on the local business directory, or, oh, now you're going to be able to pay bills through the Village of Maywood app. So having that progression throughout the year really gets those people that have already downloaded the app an initiative to go back and check out that new feature. And then word of mouth always spreads, between neighbors and between, other residents saying, hey, if you haven't downloaded the whole city app yet, you got to check it out. They just rolled out this new business directory, has all my favorite restaurants, and I can find out when they're doing their local deals and etc. So those are some of the advantages, some of the things that we recommend before they go live for download is, don't essentially roll out with everything at once because it's a little overwhelming because there's so much functionality. Kind of, have those different breaks throughout the month or throughout the quarter and make those announcements, whether you have your newsletter or during one of your broadcast to council meetings. It really depends on the marketing as well.
And but when a city has a good uptake, are those numbers, you see 20% of residents downloading the app? Is there anything like that that's a baseline of what a good uptake has been?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, one of our clients in Utah actually made a really simple first step, I should say, once their app went live. Basically what they did was they took those little yard signs that you see that say for sale or garage sale, whatever, and they placed those outside the police department, outside of City Hall, outside the library, and they included a little QR code on that sign. So that way, as people were walking in or walking out, that grabbed their attention and they could simply just take out their mobile device, scan that QR code, and they have that app, downloaded in seconds. Just by putting those yard signs out, we saw an uptake of, I believe it was 2,800 downloads within that month, just by having those yard signs outside of those buildings. So having, that, again, that marketing in front of that type of foot traffic. I know we're still in a pandemic and things are still on lockdown in some areas, but just something as simple as that, you can get a huge uptake in your download totals for the month.
Yeah. I have a couple more questions. Do you guys collect demographic data of users, or what data are you collecting of your users?
The only thing we're really collecting is the number of downloads by which device, and then, like I mentioned, their usage. So when they're opening the app live, how long are they staying within the app? How many minutes? How many seconds? And so forth. Which modules are they going to more frequently than other modules? So that way you can get an idea as far as where your traffic is going. Okay,
but it's not collecting phone numbers or emails or personal data like that?
No personal data. If you're using the MyCivic 311 system, the only thing we ask is for them to set up a profile for your benefit, which would include their first name, last name, email, and contact number. So that way, in case you needed to reach out to them. But we do have the option of including what we call a stay anonymous button. So that's really at the setup process. If you want them in order to submit an issue, we can set it up so they have to fill out those fields in order to submit something, or we could turn on that stay anonymous button, because we've heard from, in some cases, hey, I don't really want to narc on my neighbor, letting them know that he's parked his boat, in the driveway for the past 2 months. And, when he asks who told you about my boat being parked out there for so long, they don't want the finger getting pointed at them. So they like to stay anonymous.
Okay.
Brandon, the MyCivic 311, is that available as a standalone platform like see-click fixes?
Correct.
Okay.
So you can do the citizen engagement package alone, the 311 package alone, or you could do both.
Correct.
And it would all be in one app.
Correct.
One other just question on the pricing for these, is it tiered at all by city size? I mean, we're a much smaller city than a lot of the clients you're mentioning. So obviously city budgets are going to be smaller for our city. Is that at all, does that factor in?
Yeah, that's one of the things our system calculates is the population of a city, and then like you had mentioned, their fiscal budget. Since I believe you're around the, is it 6,000 in population?
6,300.
6,300? Okay, so you'd probably be in one of our lowest tiers.
So Brandon, how often would we have access to the metrics that you were talking about as far as users, modules, and so on? How often would we monitor that ourselves? Would we get that from you quarterly, monthly?
That's built into the content management system. So you'd have access to that 24/7. It's on your dashboard when you log into the content management where you manage the app. That's the first statistic that pops up. And I could actually show you if you'd like me to share my screen with you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there anyone in Oakland County who uses this currently?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can run a query and get those local neighbors and see which ones are active live clients. So that way you can
We do know the city of Troy uses it.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So you could download Troy's app whenever you like and take a look at what they've put together. I believe you just go to your app store and search City of Troy or just Troy MI, and it should pop up.
Brandon,
All right.
what
Sue?
kind of percentage usage could we expect when the app was first rolled out? If we were getting a good volume of folks using it?
Again, it really comes down to your marketing. We'll do our best as far as giving you some canned responses, so that way you can start posting messages throughout your social media, your Instagram, your Twitter, just letting the community know that a whole city app is coming to the App Store for them to download. But again, I recommend those QR codes, putting those signs out, any advertisement you could do in your newsletters that gets into the hands of your residents is, that really builds up the momentum, and they're searching that app store on a regular basis, just waiting for that to be live because you've generated so much excitement around it.
Would you be providing us with any other marketing tools?
Yeah. I've been told what we could do is we can even have a little pop-up on your website, just letting them know that an app has been available, and when they click on that link, it takes them directly to that app store to download it on Google Play, let's say. So yeah, we can work with you as far as advertisement goes, as where you want to get that message out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Lauren or Will or Chera? Any follow-up questions for Brandon?
I'm good on my side. Thank you, though.
Similarly. And Krista, thank you for your questions. Those were really thoughtful and helpful.
All right. Well, Brandon, thank you for taking the time on a Tuesday evening
No problem.
to meet
My
with us.
pleasure. And thank you all for your questions. They were really excellent questions. Thank you so much.
All right. I'll talk to you or I'll email you later, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Take care,
All
Amy.
right. Thanks, Brandon.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next is just a discussion on the idea of an app, which I guess I'd like to break it down into two types of apps. There's the model for reporting programs, and for My Civic, it's called My Civic 311. And then there's also a general, I don't know, city service type app that can be split off or joined. So I'll go around the horn here, so everybody gets a chance to talk or give us, so we could hear your opinion. Sorry, Lauren, you want to start?
I'm in favor of an app. I am in favor of the My Civic, right? The more enhanced one. Sorry, I keep interposing the names. So I'll keep it brief. I've shared my thoughts on it. I think it would be beneficial to the community as long as we, you know, did our job as the communication committee and making sure we got the word out. So I'll keep it brief and leave it to the rest of the board. I've shared plenty of my opinions on this so far.
All right, thank you. Chera.
Yeah, thanks, Amy, and everyone on the committee. I'm still on the fence on, do we need an app? Of the three, I do like My Civic the best, especially for both because it can do things that are responsive and also proactive. The broader question of, do we need an app, is would our city be well served by an app? You know, Krista, your questions were really helpful about being able to track usage and really consider like what are we trying to solve with an app, kind of going back to that. And I kind of remain on the fence. I would say if our city departments, public safety, public works kind of folks, if having an app and would streamline their workflow, because I can hear that the 311 functionality is a big thing. If it's helpful to folks in Parks and Rec, because calendars can be posted, people may be able to make payments online and so on. If that would actually help people's workflow and free people to do other things, then it would have my full support. So I would want to have some of our city departments that are really implicated here involved in the decision making. And if folks are in favor of it and the city budget can support it, then it has my complete support. That feels like remaining questions that I have here.
Thank you. Will.
Yeah, I would say that I am largely in favor of an app. I think Chera brought up some good points about, I think there's still some questions about exactly what we're trying to solve, but I do think that of the things that we had identified early on in the conversation, My Civic app, right, hit most of those buckets because it wasn't just a 311, it also was a civic engagement side, and it offers both. I think definitely before we would jump into a 311 package, I'd want to ensure that the city departments actually found that useful. But I feel pretty confident about a civic engagement app. You know, for now, I wish that there was some sort of pilot program we could do where we could get like a reduced year and really test this out, you know, because like that would be my ideal. But I know that, you know, we've kind of broached that and that's not entirely possible. And while that would be my ideal, I think I'm still in favor of us at least giving the civic engagement app a try, and pending feedback from city departments, also adding the 311.
All right, Krista.
Thanks. I do think My Civic was the best of the three, you know, going back to look at their full rollout. I also downloaded the Troy app. I do like how it posts, you know, you can go in the calendar, you can add things right to your calendar. That's a great feature. I will say I did get some data from Troy that I wanted to share, which basically they launched theirs in 2019. And at this point, they've had about 4.5% of their population download the app. So less than 5%. So I just think we need to think seriously about that. And are we going to be able to fully integrate this with the other communication channels? I'm kind of in the same boat as Chera. I think if there is real city support, Amy, if you think this streamlines workflows and this is going to be a really helpful tool, then I can see some great benefit. I think the key population that will benefit from this is likely highly engaged people in the city already. If the goal here is to connect the people that we're missing and connect those people who are having trouble getting information, my hunch is they're not going to be the people to download this app. It's going to be more of a a really helpful tool for the people who are highly engaged in the city and really seeking out already what does the city have to offer. And, you know, it could be a great tool for that. So, you know, I'm supportive if Amy and you and the city and the departments think it's a good tool. And if the budget allows that's where I'm also a little bit unsure of like where this fits into the city's full budget considerations. So you know, being a little bit ignorant in that area, you know, I don't want to take something to the city commission that they're gonna say this is crazy, there's no way we could afford this. But if we think this is a reasonable ask, then and the city supports it, the city workers support it, then I would be supportive.
Thank you. Sue?
Okay, I also reviewed the meeting where the presentation was done. And I absolutely see My Civic as the way to go. There just is no comparison. I know in the last meeting, I was listening to everyone give their praises to My Civic, and I absolutely see why they were going that direction, because there's no doubt in my mind that would be the app to go with. So I wanted to start there. I basically feel that it's a great app, but there are some questions. And the one thing is, I believe you said, Amy, that Joe Roselle brought this up initially because of the reporting aspect. Is that correct? And so what I would like to know, and not being an employee of the city, I don't know what this app does in terms of reporting that is not already included in the kinds of programs that you already have. Does it do things that you don't have? It appears to me that what it does in terms of reporting is great, and it would provide a lot of accountability. But the question is, are those things already there, or are these new things? So I agree that in terms of, it's important to get the feedback from the city in terms of the people, the head people that would be using the app. Would this benefit them? Because if there's not buy-in for them, and if they don't think it's beneficial, then I don't think from a cost standpoint that it would be worth it. I'm making an assumption that the amount of money we're talking about in terms of the entire city budget would not be a problem, but I don't know, and that's a decision that the city would need to make. But I am really concerned of what Krista said about Troy and there being such a low usage rate. And if they're getting less than 5% using the app, then does it really become something that we should be considering spending the money for? That I don't know. But in terms of the functionality and the citizen engagement piece, I think it does some really neat things. I also agree that just being able to click on the calendar and it's in your personal an event that's in the app and it's on your calendar, I think is fabulous. But I don't know if we're going to get any people that aren't already engaged with the website and other means of communication within the city if we're going to draw in more people. So I think it would make it easier for those that are engaged, because it seems like it's a really easy app to use. And I would think that especially the younger population that is so much into using apps, it appears to me to be a quicker way to get information.
Can I just make one follow-up point? Because in terms of the Troy statistic, So Troy has a citizen population of about 83,000. And so 4% of 83,000 is about 3,500. Sorry, I'm doing rough estimations. And so if we got 3,500 folks in the city of Huntington Woods, which just, it's hard to compare Huntington Woods in terms of like apples to apples because we're such a uniquely involved community. Personally, that would be a huge success to me if we got.
Well, that would be like 50% of our.
But what I'm saying, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't think we can compare 4% as like the turnout to our population, considering that there's so many more folks. And I agree with the point. It's something to consider. Absolutely. I don't mean to negate it, but I think we have to take these into proportional. They're not apples to apples comparison. And where Huntington Woods really is very unique is our community is very involved and folks like to know what's going on. Every month we have folks that are non-members that join this meeting because they like to know what's going on. And so I'm going to stop here, but I guess the point is like the 4% is relevant, but we have to take that into consideration of our population size, right? So we don't have as large of a geographic area to advertise to. We have billboards built into the city as it is that people drive past regularly. We have a smaller population, and Amy, you probably have data in terms of how many folks open the emails that you send out each week. So it's relevant. It's important information to consider as we make a purchase. But I think in the context of it, for me, I don't think we shouldn't dissuade the board from bringing this to the commission. Like in some ways, and this is gonna be like my final, because I feel like the conversation's taken a different turn, which is if we all think that there's a beneficial use, it's not really our job to decide, to make like the final determination. So if as a board, I think that the question we should be asking if it comes to a vote, just so we start to get some progress here, is do we think it would be useful? Do we think that we like the platform and that there might be some utility to the city, and then bring it to the commission and let them make the determination in terms of budgets and application and what the city feels in line with that charge. And so I'd like to be able to say we did something this year. But that's all. I think we've done a lot of really good homework. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but that's all I'll say.
All right. Eileen.
I think from a communication standpoint, marketing standpoint, branding standpoint, an overall engagement standpoint, I'm definitely in favor. I remember bringing the app up at our first meeting at City Hall, and if that was a possibility. So I am in favor in supporting the My Civic app, as I'm very well aware of all the different points that you brought up. Definitely, I respect everyone's opinion, but I think at this juncture, it would be a step in the right direction to pursue this if we're able to financially and so on and so forth. So I'm definitely in support.
All right, and Lynn, would you
Yeah.
like to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has some really good perspectives, and I think I'm more aligned with Chera's approach. I think that, if we were going to go with one, I agree with everybody's weigh in, but I'm still not convinced that the app is necessary. And I'm not convinced that it would move the needle in terms of connection or deepening the relationship between residents and the city. So I just feel a little cautious about the need to push forward with it. But if everybody thinks that it would be beneficial, then I think that is a good option. So we know which one we want if we go forward with it, but I'm not convinced that it's a definite need.
All right. I think my next step will be to meet with the department heads. We have a staff meeting on March 17th, and I can bring up I've already met with a couple of department heads on this, the ones that that take the most complaints, but not with everybody. So I think I should bring it up at a staff meeting, and then maybe I can arrange another demonstration with Brandon for the department heads, so they can understand the back end of it and how it works, and whether or not that would fit with the way that we are resolving our citizen complaints right now. And then for the engagement app, I'm wondering if there is still money available, COVID money available. I think that we had some from the county. I believe it expired December 31st, but there might be some additional money forthcoming, and this might be something that could be, at least the development part could be paid for with grant money, if you will. And if that's a possibility, then it becomes a lot easier to work into the budget. So I'm going to work on whether or not there's COVID grant money still available for helping us improve our communications during COVID, since we can't, meet in public. That's what we what our rationale would be, and then also to have more discussion with the department head. So if it's okay with the committee, I'm just going to sort of put this on hold, do more research, and then put it back on the agenda in April. Does that sound good? All right. So then the next item of business, I wanted to bring you up to date on the master plan update. We did award the contract to a planning firm called MKSK Studios, and they're going to have a kickoff meeting with the Planning Commission sometime in April. And after that kickoff meeting, we're going to start setting dates for the community visioning sessions, and we need to push out information on what the master plan update is all about. So I know we had talked about a variety of different ways to communicate that to the public. So I will keep you up to date on those methods that we're using to make sure I'm hitting all of them. Because this was going to be the kind of the test program for if we really push on our communications, will we see a better turnout than we would expect to see when we do the master plan update, and we just sort of let people know it's happening, but don't encourage them to come to the meetings. So that's coming, that's on its way. The community engagement coordinator position, Lynn and the clerk and I interviewed 4 candidates Monday, and we have landed on a candidate that we are all happy with, and I'm following up now with references before I offer her the position. But she is a student, and so she'd be able to do the work on a part-time basis that appeals to her. And she also did similar work for the city of Rochester. So she understands small governments, understands what it is that we're trying to do. Now, I haven't offered her the position yet, so don't Google her or anything, but we are on our way toward filling that position. Any questions on the master plan update or the community engagement coordinator position update? All right, and then what I'd like to do.
So Amy, not questions, but just quick comment to say that's both of those sound really, like really positive. So nice work.
Yep, we're moving forward. We move slow, but we move forward. All right, I'd like to turn it over to Colette. There's been discussion among the senior advisory committee about the different programs and services that we offer to our residents, and it's clear to staff that while we believe that we are pushing out the information in a number of different methods, for some reason it's just not getting through. So I'd like to have Colette go over the different methods that we use, and then perhaps you could give us some feedback if we're missing anything, or if there are different ways to use these methods to reach people. But let me turn it over to Colette, and she can toot our horn.
Well, first of all, I drew up this, you sent it out, right, Amy?
Yes.
So everyone should have a copy. I drew up this information as kind of a intro to the new people on the senior advisory board, just to give them an idea of how we get the word out. So if you have that document in front of you, you can sort of follow along. I'm obviously not going to read it, but I just want to tell you some points on how we get the word out to 60 plus. So obviously the city newsletter typically goes out to people's doors 4 times a year. During COVID, we haven't done fall or winter to people's houses. We are starting back in summer, probably indefinitely starting in summer to people's homes again. I feel like it's been fairly evident that people want a hard copy. We sort of thought this could be a good opportunity to tell if it was time to go to online and save the money of mailing it and printing it. But I think just the opposite, it sort of showed that it was something that people really enjoyed having the hard copy. Young moms were telling me that, seniors were telling me that. It really has been the overwhelming feedback. You can go through your own paper about the 60 plus crowd newsletter that kind of outlines how we do that. I don't know if I really need to go over that, but this is a great newsletter. The information is taken directly from the city newsletter, but it's targeted directly at 60 plus, kind of explains how we pay for it, how it's published, all in there. Next is through the rec department. One of our big tools that we've been using a lot, especially through COVID, and it has been, I feel, pretty successful, is our recreation registration program here. We have, a lot of people in the system. We try and solicit for more people all the time, but we do direct target market emails. Like yesterday, I sent one to 60 plus that included very similar to Amy's e-blast on Friday, but very rec specific. That has been really well received. It gets the word out. I think people kind of know to look for it. And we can pick whatever demographic we want. It can be 2nd and 3rd grade only. It can be 60 years and over. It can be females on. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now, but it can be whatever we decide to pick from that. I have been working with Amy on the weekly e-blast, and while I can't remember who was asking about it, we have been pushing it a little bit more, trying to get more people on that. In the last 30 days, we got 16 new people registered, which I thought was pretty good. We have 1,800 people who are registered to get that email, and 63% are actually opening the email. So I think those are good numbers. I'm excited about that and excited to be working on it as well. We did talk about you did talk about the website being updated. We specifically as a department don't really use the city website too much. It's really more like an easy place for people to get general information. I think most people call us directly for the information that's on the website. I find that calls that come into the rec center from non-residents seem to be who use the city website, but whatever. Nixle is on there. That's through public safety. I'm sure you're aware of that. With COVID, we really wanted to make sure, like Amy was saying about how with all of these tools that we use, there's still people we're not reaching. I think we have almost 1,000 people in our computer system, and I believe the census stat said there's almost 2,000 seniors in the city. So I'm not sure how we're missing people, because The newsletter is going to every household and is, is asking people to get in touch with us if we haven't found them already. The e-blasts are asking the 60 plus that goes to every household is distributing the information, but still there's people who are saying they don't have the information. So this, especially with COVID, we thought it'd be a good idea to put an insert in the water bill. So one more way to get it out in people's hands, in people's homes. And we did an insert that had Jen's information on it, Jen being our Huntington Wood Cares Senior Outreach Coordinator, all her information to please contact her. She's got tons of resources. We wanted people to know that it was available. We did get quite a few responses from that. I'm not positive what quite a few means, but I know we heard back from people based on the water bill, so it wasn't a failure. I know that for sure. In the next water bill, just a little FYI, the prior insert had Jennifer's information on one side and national and local resource phone numbers. We're going to change that up because we have several in-person socialization opportunities for 60 plus, and we're going to do that on the opposite page of Jennifer's information. So again, I feel like because it's in that envelope and in people's hands and people want to open their water bill, they're going to see it. So that's a good tool. But I would think that the newsletter and the 60 plus that also comes to people's houses would do that as well, but apparently it doesn't. I'm not sure. We did have a new idea of the people that we have recorded their birthdays. For example, through the voters registration, Jennifer is calling those people and wishing them a happy birthday, gathering information on them. So we have their contact information. We have their emergency contact information, their email, whatnot, so we can put them in the system. That has been super successful. Then general things like flyers, Facebook signboards, next door, sometimes we use. Those are the ways we get the information out. I'd love to know anyone's thoughts about what we're missing. I can tell you for sure they won't use an app, but I don't know. Any thoughts or ideas? I did think it was worthwhile, like I said, put this together for the Senior Advisory Committee, but I did think it was worthwhile, and I asked Amy if it was something that we could present to the Communications Committee just as both informational for you and hopefully informational for me as well. That's it.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Colette.
Thank you. Hi.
One, I guess I'm wondering if your comments about people not knowing of information are dating back to before COVID, or how much you think people just not being able to be in person, like, and see flyers and see posted boards in the rec center, how much does that have to do with this? Because that problem is going to resolve itself fairly soon, we hope, right?
Yeah, I think it really is still, it's really amazing that we can get a hold of people and they just say they don't know. And I think you're right. A lot of that was pre-COVID, but it's during COVID also.
Well,
I
I guess
mean,
what I'm saying is, did this problem start during COVID, or does it?
No.
It predates COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question I had was on the email newsletters that are going out.
The ones from the rec center?
So the rec center ones are going out sort of ad hoc when you have something to get to people. So the one that's sort of scheduled is on Fridays from the city.
Correct.
I guess I was just wondering, how did you land on the timing of that? Was there like A/B testing involved with, it sounds like you're getting a good open rate, but I just wonder, how did you decide on the timing of that email?
That would actually be Amy, because I just kind of came on board helping her recently, but that's through Constant Contact. And it's been going on several years, but Amy, you would know better than me.
So we send it out on Friday because it has links to the agendas the following week. And we expect our department heads to get those agendas to our IT person or our website person at the library that by that week, the week before. So Friday's kind of like our cutoff. It has
Got
to be
it.
on the website on Friday so that it's in the next week.
Okay, I mean, typically like Friday is not a great time to send things out, like late Friday, but if you're seeing a really good uptake, I do think that there could be this could just be an exception to that where people are checking for that on Fridays. And then the only other question I had was just on how much you're actually doing reach out to like the Woodward Talk, the little newspaper that comes, and whether or not, specifically for stuff for the 60 and older crowd, are you regularly sending them updates about things going on? Do you have a contact there that we're regularly like just shooting an email to let them know things are going on?
I haven't really had a lot of success with the Woodward Talk, and they, that only goes out once a week, and it's a little bit, I don't know, because all of our things are residents only, it's hard to put it out there to, 4 or 5 communities.
Yeah.
The information, because we receive a ton of calls, people asking for the service.
Okay.
So we haven't really utilized that much, but even when we try, we haven't had great success, but that could just be because we don't have a consistent relationship with them.
Okay. No, that's helpful to know. Thanks, Colette.
No problem.
When I do send out press releases, they go to all the papers, including the used to be Oakland 115. I think it has a different name now. And I get a good response from the Woodward Talk, and he also watches our commission meetings and occasionally calls and writes articles. But writing press releases is not, it's one of those communication things that's on my plate. So I'm hoping that bringing on this new community engagement coordinator, somebody will be more proactive about sending out press releases, that I don't have to look at an event or look at a project and think, oh, we got to send out a press release on that too.
Right.
So hopefully that we'll see an uptick in our coverage with the filling of this position.
So one thing that, so I'm making an assumption that our population of people who are 60 plus are relatively stable in terms of people coming and going. There are exceptions, of course, that people move to the neighborhood, but I'm going to assume that there are a number of people who did not move into the neighborhood in the last year or two. And so
Correct.
One question, so just in general, but I'm knowing that is not 100%. So one question I have, it would be labor intensive, but we are relatively small, 6,300 residents. If we have demographic information that lets us know which households have household members who are 60 plus, could there be an effort made to call people and to let them know, Colette, what you just did, to make sure people have access to information? And so if you get people on the phone and they don't know, that would be the opportunity to directly connect people to what the opportunities, what the engagement could be. Like, is there like a one-time thing that could be done that, again, labor intensive for sure, but small enough numbers to make it in reach?
Or add that into these birthday calls. So you say happy birthday, and then you go through a checklist of services.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. That's where these birthday calls, which just started the end of last year, have really been invaluable. But we don't have the specific addresses and phone numbers of each household. So that's where we're just like trying to get as many as possible. And by the way, except for the 60 plus crowd newsletter, these are the ways, like what's listed on here really is how we advertise all of our programs, not just 60 plus. This just happened to be something I put together for the senior committee. So I didn't alter it because I figured you could figure it out.
The senior advisory committee, Chera, was kind of thinking the same way you were. We have voter registrations. Now that's not everybody, but that's a lot of people. And so we could identify the addresses of residents that were whatever cutoff age we wanted to select. And we had put together a printed trifold pamphlet with all the things outlined for our older residents, things like the medical loan closet. You know, we get questions about that, and people are like, well, I didn't know you had that. And I'm like, well, yeah, we do. We tried to push that out. And one of our members of the senior advisory committee was working with, I think, the Boy Scouts to hand deliver those, and then COVID hit. And there were programs on there, like the transportation program, that we're no longer running. So that's just on hold right now. And once we are up and running and back to normal, then I will get that project underway and be able to deliver those pamphlets, hand deliver them to targeted older residents. Rather than reach them by phone, they'll get a printed piece of information, because we don't have phone numbers for people. We just have addresses and their age from their voter records.
So we're getting there. Any other questions about this? I'm happy to have been able to present it. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
I would just throw out there that if we ever had the capability to do this as a city, and I know we're talking about 60 plus, but just taking, there's a concept called targeted universalism. So, which basically means that when you focus on people that have the greatest inequity in whatever situation, in this case, our concern is with adults who in our community who are 60 and older, and access to information about our city if there's a gap. The idea would be you apply whatever you would do, you focus it specifically, and actually everybody in a city could benefit. So I'm gonna just sort of riff on it for a second. Knowing if we have 6,300 residents, but not 6,300 households, if we ever were in a position to simply call everybody, or try to call everybody, if there was a way to do that systematically, and ensure that if people answer the phone or if you leave a message, that people have a sense of how do you connect to our city for information, for services, for opportunities for recreation, connection with neighbors, that could be a real thing. Again, I understand that would be a labor-intensive undertaking and probably would require resources above and beyond the way things are budgeted today. But if the goal was to make sure that everybody who lives in our city has access to information about whatever our top priorities are, that would be one way to do it. It would be to try to make an individual personal connection with people.
I think we're really close to doing that, honestly, which is crazy to think about. Our first line of defense, I guess, was to ask people, like residents with kids, if you have kids, like, it's in the newsletter, give us a call, make sure you're in our system, make sure you're updated, get the email notifications. Like, that was, asking for people to call us to get in the system. That was like one way we were trying to get a hold of people. We've been pushing the Friday emails quite a bit, again, having them come to us, but that has started to take off a little bit. 16 in the last 30 days. That's good. Same with, the different ways we've been trying to attract the seniors to give us a call to get them in the system. That has sort of worked. Now, especially with the birthday calls, that has sort of started to chip away at some of the people that we haven't reached yet. So the next step is to try and identify the ones that we haven't reached yet. So we're getting there slowly but surely. So it really is happening, which to me is crazy. Like you said, 6,300 is not a lot, but it's still 2,400 homes. So we're doing it. We're getting there.
All right. Any other thoughts on our communication efforts for our older residents?
Or any.
Right, Claire.
one problem, I think you need to look a little bit broader. Everything is focused on let's get somebody's phone number, let's get digital information so we can send out emails, etc. But the reality is there are still people that, even younger people, who aren't engaged with electronic only. I know this is crazy and it all predates all of this, but back in the day when I moved to town, we had a residents association. I'm not suggesting we start a residents association, but there were 12 of us. And when we had things to get out for the city, and it wasn't just things the residents association went, we actually had the city divided in 3 parts, and 4 of us walked our section and we hung things on people's door. And I know that sounds crazy in this day and age when everybody wants to do it electronically, but the reality is that there are lots of ways of communicating with people that are not dependent on electronics. And I don't suggest that this is the way you get things out week after week, but it might be something that we think about. And this idea that, oh, it's impossible to do. I mean, literally 12 of us did the entire city. And we did it house by house by house. And
I think you're forgetting about the newsletter, and the 60 plus and the water bills are all going directly to people's houses. And the men's club does have the city broken up to drop things off at people's houses. So it sort of already is in play, getting people outside of an electronic method.
Colette, all of those things were available back when we used to walk the city. I'm talking about those other things that are important information, not on an ongoing basis, but something that comes out. The city plan, for example, updating the city master plan. We can do all this electronic stuff, but this is something that you might, and I'm not suggesting you do it, but this might be something that you think, how else can we physically communicate this? Not in the newsletter, which people sort of look for what they're interested in, but don't read it cover to cover. Sort of look at the e-blast, but don't necessarily go all the way down to the bottom, etc. That maybe there are, you talked about it early on, that it isn't just looking at electronics. And I again suggest that I think you got to reach out and look at options that are not only electronic.
Isn't the newsletter coming door to door, not electronic?
Colette, there's always
no. I'm asked. This is a real question.
No, and I would suggest that a lot of things in the newsletter get buried because it's 3 months worth, and people glance at it. They look at the things that they think they're interested in. They don't read it all. It's one mechanism. It does go to everybody, but it's one mechanism. We send out are you suggesting we only send out the e-blast? Because
no, not at all.
No, we do look at all the different kinds of electronic things we do, and nobody suggests that we don't do them all because we do one of them. And I would suggest that there are other options out there other than just the newsletter, just the 60 plus, just some of these things, because I think that we are missing people, and getting their phone numbers is no good if you're not going to call them all the time, which you're not going to do.
Right, but we are calling them, is I guess part of the issue.
So I really like Claire, I'm going to riff here because I really love your point about, for connecting the master plan update. So a real project, something that is a high city priority where lots of resources are already being invested. But there is, I believe, something to be said about, again, small city, 6,300 people, 2,400-ish households, having information that goes in multiple directions. So whereas written materials are really important, and we have, as Colette, very helpfully shared with us, the many ways that written materials are shared, many communications vehicles there. There is, in things like, if we're talking about community engagement, we want to hear from people, something to be said about creating a buzz and having some information and ideas exchanged. The sort of sense of like the public square. And we are small enough in our geographic footprint that a handful of people could actually walk out. You could imagine, just gonna riff, if you've been to larger cities, the people who are forever raising money for whatever causes, people have clipboards, they've got matching t-shirts, and they want to come and talk to you about, can you sign this petition? can you donate to this cause? Often it's not money, it's actually a cause. Like sign for Planned Parenthood, do you support, you know, the right to choice, for instance? But in that way, we are small enough and people are moving around physically, like walking around in the neighborhood, riding bikes, etc. 12, 15 people wearing green shirts that say Huntington Woods and talking about the master plan. I believe if we had something like that over a couple of weeks, people would be talking about it. So that's just my hypothesis. And I think that there's something to be said for low tech and no tech in this way, communication about things that we actually want to encourage conversation, if not debate.
Who, in your mind, who would that be? The master plan people? I mean, in this,
I think that's, yeah,
like-
I right now, I'm not operationalizing it. I'm putting the idea out there to say, if our intent is not only to communicate that it's happening, but to begin a community engagement process, we want to hear from people. I do think that there's something to be worth considering with actually talking to people and somebody's walking around and talking to neighbors, and perhaps with a little bit of training on like what are some of the main things under consideration with the master plan. At what point would you actually want to have conversations? Like what are the things that residents are being invited into to consider, to vote, to share an opinion? All of those things are operational, but I think the idea is something to consider.
I was just going to ask, sorry, I think there's a bit of an echo too. But so I think that makes a lot of sense for the master plan, which, Chera, as you pointed out, right, major city priority, right, a lot of resources. So, you know, sort of a physical dropped mailer, right, that people go around walking. I think it makes a ton of sense. But I think, right, when this issue was originally raised, it outside of the master plan, right, just sort of lack of, you know, 60 plus crowd, right, lack of information broadly, and how outside of a major initiative like that. And I'm just curious, Colette, is there maybe some, is there, I don't know the right word, but is there a bucket of information or programming or services that you're most hearing back, like, oh, we didn't know about that and I wish we did? Is it broad-based, or does it tend to fall into sort of some specific topics?
I think it's pretty broad. It's just, I think once we get a hold of the people, the address, their phone number, that we can kind of get that information out to them. Jennifer usually makes direct contact with them, talks one-on-one, starts getting them in the fold. It's actually like identifying those people, I think, is the biggest issue.
That makes, I just think, yeah, again, you know, kind of the large, you know, walk the city, drop the mailer makes a lot of sense for key priorities like master plan, or, you know, 1 to 2 things throughout the year, you know. But I'm just trying to think also on a more consistent weekly, daily basis, right? I think, Claire, your point about Hometown Herald or the other newsletters, there's just a lot of information. So when you like, how do you get more people into the system in terms of the information? And 2, how do you, when something's really, you know, we want your attention on this, what's that platform? You know, I don't totally know. I think it's a great point that it's probably not digital exclusive, right? Maybe it's digital too, like everything, but it needs to be something that's in hard copy. I think the other thing, Claire, you said this a couple meetings ago, just a really good point. I don't know if this is already mapped. Just who are sort of the key word of mouth people, right? Like, Claire, you mentioned earlier, like that you know, there are people that can become the tree, right? And I think that's just another avenue. And again, all of this is probably not either or, it's both and. But I think that's another avenue. I don't know if that's mapped at the city level.
Can I?
Claire?
I'd like to agree with that. And I send out a weekly email because I had an exercise and socialize. We used to do it. I used to be by myself, but I have this list and I send it out. And I have hammered a lot of people on that list for specific events. and have seen results. A lot more people wanted lunch, for example, because I hammered it week after week after week. I think that some of it is just repetition, and some of it is pinpointing to the same audience over and over and over again and inviting them. I think you've got to invite people to participate.
Gail, did you have a comment?
I do. When COVID came and the city put out signs, not quite every 6 feet, but along the street, reminding everybody to social distance, to wear their mask and things like that. All very noticeable when you're out and about walking. Being in real estate, one of the things that we utilize all the time is putting take me baskets attached to signs with pertinent information that we want them to read. And I think the reading of the signs along the street have been great. I think that if there were a need for something in the parks or whatever else, putting, you know, a take me box of some sort that might be new and giving certain ideas, you know, about something, or, you know, letting people know that. These little libraries that have popped up all over the city have people stopping if they're willing to touch books now and things like that. And I just think that while we're out and about, if we could create something visual and physical for people to see and to take while they're sitting in the park, there might be next to the bench, you know, some little thing where they could take something, read about something, make a phone call about it. Just another way of trying to get information out, because they're definitely out walking.
I think the physical signs point makes a ton of sense. I saw I was taking more walks in March 2020 than I was in my entire life. So I saw a lot of those signs. I think there's also just, you know, there's sort of two separate goals or two separate sort of tracks that are being talked about though. One is sort of like, if we have something that we really want to get out, right? Like the master plan, or like there's something we want people to know about, then it's signs, you walk the neighborhood. I think, you know, the one issue that we still haven't totally addressed, which Colette, you brought up, is just how to get more information into the system. That other 1,000 people that you don't know, right? I think you said you sort of have 1,000 in the system. How do you get the other 1,000 in the system? I think that's maybe a slightly different initiative. The thought that I just sort of noodle around, and again, this is a lot of resources, a lot of time, so I don't know if this is totally feasible, but could you do some sort of like, maybe the birthday calls, maybe, or, you know, maybe birthdays are a way to do this, but Amy, you said you had the addresses through the voter registration. Can we do care package drop off with some sort of flyer that says, you know, we want to call you, right? We want to keep you up, like send in your phone number, or write a request for sort of giving, you know, that maybe that's a way to get more people in, get their contact information in the system. If we have their address, we can maybe use like a care package drop off as a way to get the rest of the information. So that, again, that's probably maybe bigger than we want to take on at the time being, but an idea popped in my head, and I'm the kind of guy who just, I guess, throws it out in that moment. So
we work on a zero budget for everything.
I think the idea of doing the boxes similar to the real estate boxes that Gail mentioned, when houses are for sale, they have the flyers in them about the house. If those were put at all the parks, in front of the rec center, in front of the library, in front of City Hall, and we had boxes at all these places all the time, and we just put in simple flyers for one event, not anything like the news blasts that go out that have a lot of information, that could really get people's attention for things that are important. And there are tons of people that are out and about. And the other thing is, it is a lot more intensive, is doing door hangers for really important things.
All right, a lot of good ideas. Any other comments on the rec department discussion?
I was just gonna make one more, which is that I can understand, Colette, why you would sort of be using all of the same channels for all of your information. But you might just think about, like, at some point creating personas. So you have your youth persona, you have your, 60+ persona, and then really targeting for each one of them, what are the key places that you're gonna prioritize, just to help prioritize. It doesn't mean you never post on those other places or that you never use every channel to communicate something, but just to help you maybe get a little more targeted into, where your priorities are, where your energy might go. And then the other thing I don't know if you've considered is 460+ is a Facebook group. I know that's another digital tool. And just to be clear, I do think that there could be some, possibilities with building some sort of like on the ground, ambassador team of people who you could, help get the word out about things, including, sometimes maybe going door to door. But, Facebook has an older demographic. A lot of people are on there. They like to see, what their grandkids are doing, the pictures of the family, whatever. And Facebook groups in particular are pretty engaged places where if you can start inviting people in and posting events there, that's free. You don't necessarily have to pay anything for that. And, it might just be something to pilot and see if that does anything to help.
We have so few of our 60+, like, people who are active on Facebook. It
Like
seems
they don't
like
even have an account.
don't even have an account or don't even have an interest.
Yeah.
It's really,
it might not be. Yeah. It might not be.
We don't really post on Facebook for any of our 60+ stuff. I mean, some stuff just to, get it out there. One more way to get it out there. But Facebook definitely has not been. That's really more like families with kids really are our target audience for Facebook.
Okay.
Is there any social media, like, is Nextdoor active? Well, it's active in this community in general, but I would say out of the people that are saying that they're not receiving, I don't know if Nextdoor is a tool. It's also a dangerous line with Nextdoor. Just 'cause
we
a
post
lot of
some
people-
things on Nextdoor, not too much. Every once in a while, we'll get a different, a different group of people who might be interested in something, but haven't had great success through Nextdoor. I don't know. I feel like we've tried so many things, but
I think
maybe my expectations are too high.
I think the seniors that use technology a lot do read the newsletters and the weekly e-blasts and that kind of thing. For those people, I don't know that you really need another outlet. I think where the difficulty is in the seniors that are not technically inclined at all. And those are the most difficult seniors, I think.
I agree. I think most of the seniors are probably over 80 that we're missing, which are, a big deal. We want those seniors.
And they could be needing a lot of help and assistance from the city.
Agreed.
That I don't know if there's some way, some door-to-door effort where someone goes in person, not just leaving something on the door, but actually knocking on the door and talking to them. But I don't know how, if the city has a way to know who those folks even are.
That's where the problem's coming in, is knowing who those people are. Because Jennifer's really good at reaching out and finding anyone she can. She's used so many great ways to try and find those people, just the other day, just a small thing, I'm working on a clue hunt of historic facts about the city. And I found a couple homes in Huntington Woods that are not in our system. And if they're not in our system, that means we don't know who's living there. I have to believe that they are probably 90 years old is my guess. And I said to Jennifer, I said, how can we not have these people in the system? It's crazy to me. But I think they're older and they have their own caregivers and that's what they're doing. But anyway, I'm done. Thanks everyone for the input.
All right, the last item on our agenda is other business. Are there any items that we haven't covered yet from the committee members that you'd like to bring up at this time? All right, then. Our next meeting is April the 13th. And thank you, everybody, for the time tonight and the robust discussion. I took a lot of notes. And I'll see everybody in April.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Amy.
Hey,
All right.
Amy. Hey, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good
Have a
night.
good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.